intro this time.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Josh Talks Really Fast during Into the Overhead. I'm joined today in the home studio by none other than Dene or Dene. I heard someone call you
Dene Schneider.
Dene.
I've heard a lot.
Is this Dene? Is Dene there? Oh my God.
No, he's not.
I am joined today by Dene Schneider, and we are talking today about a couple of things, but specifically we wanted to start with gear purchases and the pitfalls that are associated with making uneducated gear purchases. And I think we have a couple of avenues that we can talk about for that one. But I think you can take this one. Start off?
Yeah, so it's I just had a class that started or finished day before yesterday, and 3 students came to me and they had all the tech gear, XD harnesses, Razor harnesses, Razor light mounts, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's decent gear.
Okay. I have a thought on that. Okay.
Okay. It's decent gear for cave diving, but they were actually configured for Mexico, the way they wrap the bungees and torque the tanks and all that stuff. And it was a little bit interesting trying to convince them that, hey, you know, that style in Mexico works great with aluminum tanks and in Mexico, but different styles, different strokes, different folks, if you know what I mean. So I was not able to get one of them to change a lot of their stuff because they were comfortable the way they were, even though they weren't using aluminum tanks, they were using steel. Okay, it wasn't a side mount class. So, you know, as long as you can perform your cavern and intro to cave skills or whatever skills that you have to do for whatever training you're doing, I personally don't care how you weigh your gear. My only requirements is that you are flat and in trim and that your tanks, so you guys can see, if this was your torso and your thighs and your legs are here, your tanks need to be here, above the plane of your belly and below the plane of your back. So if anything is going to touch the cave environment, it's going to be you and not a big metal object that's going to cause a lot of damage. That's all I really care about as far as your gear and how it's configured. Yes, you have to have a long hose and all that kind of stuff, and all the other things remain the same, but how you use your tanks, I don't care if you do the dive right ring bungee system, if you do the Hollis bungee system, if you home grow your own BC, doesn't really make a difference.
Milk jugs, baby.
wait.
Hey, Paul.
Tribute to Paul Heinrich.
So,
it's Paul Heinrich, goddammit.
Mr. Paul Heinrich, do you?
It's an inside joke. You have to be me, Paul, or someone else.
I wonder if some of that comes from a lot of the, I don't want to say sensationalism for gear purchases on YouTube, but there are even side mount courses like sidemounting.com. By the way, I have a subscription to sidemounting.com. I love it, but almost all the teaching in there is very specific to side mount Mexico, caves in Mexico, and I wonder if that's what happens.
I think they might have a small piece to do with it. I personally feel, just my opinion, I think the bigger aspect is the instructors that say, if you don't do it this way,
the wrong way. Yeah. Oh, of course. And I've heard that one. Yep.
You're going to die. You have to do it this way. It's not going to work any other way. Mm-hmm. Listen, what works for you, Josh, might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. What works for us might not work for our listeners.
For sure.
Or our viewers.
That's because you don't look as good in gear as I do.
No, I look better. I agree. Absolutely.
No, that's not what I was saying. I walked into that one.
You put on that little dry suit that you got yesterday. Okay. Josh got this brand new dry suit yesterday. I'm not even going to mention the name because, you know. But have you ever seen those white jumpsuits that people wear when they're painting?
Here we go.
It kind of looks like that without the zipper going up and down. The zipper obviously goes diagonal across his chest, but
hey, if it keeps you dry, it's a dry suit.
It did get him excited. Visibly excited.
It was because my face was turning red. That was actually the neck seal. I wasn't excited. I couldn't breathe. Yeah.
So I honestly think it has a lot to do with, and I don't even know if it has to do with the instructors and their type A personality, whether male, female, or whatever. I think that most scuba instructors, especially technical scuba instructors, almost all of them that I've met have a type A personality.
Yeah, and right? Very opinionated.
Exactly. So the opinion is great. Everybody has one. Unfortunately, they all stink. But anyway, I just think that they are not just forcing students or pushing things on students because it could be A couple different things. It's what they make the most money on as far as the markup.
Sure.
It's because it's just my opinion, what they use and what they're fluent in, and it makes their job easier to set you up in a different way so they can have an easier job in training you. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That reminds me, actually, when you said fluent, I bought a side mount harness when I first was learning side mount, and I bought it from my local dive shop. Okay, but the instructor for my side mount class was not. Yeah, he wasn't affiliated with that dive shop. So when I brought him my new harness so that we could get it sized and ready to go, he didn't want to do it. I'm interested in your take on that. Is it because he just wasn't fluent in how that particular system works, or do we think it's he didn't like that system because it's not what he sells, so he wasn't willing to size it for me? I ended up having to go back to my local dive shop.
Did you buy it from him?
No, I bought it from a local dive shop, but the local dive shop I bought it from, first of all, this is a local dive shop loyalty thing, just so we're on the same page.
Yep.
But that guy doesn't teach that type of diving. So
it could be a couple different things at that point, right? Either A, they just don't know enough about that particular piece of gear to understand how to configure it. And side mount harnesses are not, like one side mount harness, not like another, like another, like another, like another.
100%, yep.
I will admit that there are two on the market. Probably we would both agree that they're the industry leaders right now in side mount harnesses. They are very similar in a lot of different ways, but they are totally different in sizing and fitting to a student.
Like I said, they're similar in different ways.
They are very similar in a lot of different ways.
I know I think it's a valid sentence. It just my mind couldn't process similar and
that's
different.
That's typical for you, so that's okay.
So I think we're obviously talking about the
Hollis K2 and the X Deep.
No, just the X Deep and another version of the X Deep. So the Hollis is like an X Deep.
Oh, so you're an X Deep guy, right? Well, I'm a Hollis guy. So
we all make bad choices in life sometimes.
And listen,
I'm just kidding. I own both. Please, Hollis fans, don't be in the comments. Ripping me a new one. I have both. I love both. I'm sorry. Continue, please.
Okay. Thank you for the permission. So they are similar in how they generally dive. I personally like certain things about one over the other, and I don't want to get into that in this episode.
Deep dive.
Exactly. But sizing the X Deep, it's a monster. It takes a while. And, excuse me, I know there are people out there, it doesn't take that long. And okay, great. You're fluent in that harness. Mm-hmm. I am not fluent in an X Deep, but I have helped students size them and configure them and fit them properly. I'm saying, in my opinion, the Hollis Katana 2 is way easier. Ed Sorensen and one of the guys at the shop designed the Hollis, or helped design the Hollis QFS, the quick fit system. Piece of Velcro, slide it out, move it up a couple notches, and the entire harness, or the entire waistband moves up. Shorten or lengthen the shoulder straps. It's really not that difficult. To do that on the X Deep, it takes a lot more of an effort. So I don't know. But from one instructor to the next, I think that may be the biggest reason why people try to put you in what they're comfortable with and they're fluent in, because it's easier for them, thereby shorter, faster, more time actually in the water.
So I think I'm uneducated on the sizing thing. So I would have to agree with the people that say that the X Deep doesn't take that long to size, but I've never sized a K2. So, for me, it takes me anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes to size an X Deep, depending on the person and how picky I am, how picky they are. And to me, that's nothing, right? But if it takes you 3 to 5, then obviously the K2 would be better in the sizing department. I just don't know. So I can't disagree or agree.
3 to 5 obviously depends on exactly how it's set when it comes from the factory and the size and shape of the diver you're putting on.
100%.
I would say the longest that I've ever spent just on the sizing, not adding the mods for the bungee and all that stuff, that's fine, that's extra. Mm-hmm. Just sizing waistband, crotch straps, shoulder straps, max 10 minutes. Absolute max.
And also to verify or to clarify, when I say 30 minutes, for me that includes like getting in the water, making sure that everything looks right, making some adjustments in the water. Do you make adjustments in the water, or are you just generally 100%?
The only thing I typically adjust in the water is the bungees that go over the hand wheels on the tanks.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear how you initially measure the bungees. I like to do the thumb around the bungees, bring your thumbs together, and we kind of talk about how much resistance there is. What method are you using for that? Does that make sense to you?
Take my side mount.
I just... Oh, no. Okay. Can I have it for free?
No. So...
No,
you cannot have anything for free.
Wow.
When someone puts the K2 on with the dry suit, so obviously if we're still at the shop, there has to be a little bit of leeway or give or allowances, so to speak.
Sure.
The bungee for the camera, the bungee will come down and it will loop and go back up. So that loop, that end of the loop, should be mid-torso. So without a dry suit, I usually allow for like maybe an extra inch.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if you're mid-torso, and I tell my students, if you're not cursing me for busting your thumb trying to put the bungee over the valve, over the hand wheel, it can get shorter. And so it's, oh, it's too short, but you just put it on there. Yeah, but it was hard, but you did it. And the length of the bungee obviously dictates how far down the valve and the front of the tank or the top of the tank hang below you. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've seen those divers where this is their torso and the tanks are hanging down like this.
Yep.
So
too much bungee.
And that's why a lot of people, and I'm just going to say this on camera and into the microphone, a lot of people don't like the fact that I dive my first stage is facing down. Oh, you're going to bang your first stage. It's going to hit the cave. I've been doing it for 6 years. I've never hit my first stage once because they're up above the plane of my chest.
Right, your chest hits first.
Yep.
And you got these big man titties, so makes sense.
Whoa! Watch your language talking about sexual body parts.
What did you say in last week's episode? There was a B word involved. Do you remember about me saying
there's a female dog in the show, so what?
Okay, wow. Talk about our diabetic diver friend like that. I'm sorry, Zach. Jesus. Yeah, so gear purchases. So we talked about side mount harnesses. And I had an interesting experience myself when I first got into diving. I find that some dive shops, and maybe this is true for tech dive shops too, you can tell me because I haven't been to a lot of tech dive shops, but recreational dive shops are very, very opinionated in that whatever they sell is the only thing you could possibly use. You run into that in tech shops?
Unfortunately, no. Or actually, fortunately, no. Not for the most part. So, but let me ask you this. What do you think makes a shop a tech diving shop? Just because they have tech gear? Do they have to have a certain percentage over open water stuff? Because let's be honest, every scuba shop should offer both. You should offer scuba gear.
Okay, so I won't say tech focused because I don't know that there are any that are specific to tech only, but there are definitely shops that are recreational only. They don't sell anything that would be related to technical.
100%.
So the dichotomy for me is recreational only, and then when I say technical, I mean they are recreational, but they also sell services and gear for tech divers. So recreational only shops is where I've seen this. For example, I was telling you earlier, the dive shop I used to go to it's Apex or like you're not a diver, or it's Apex or you will die, or it's Apex or it's
a spare air.
Yeah, well, really, it's Apex or it's shit. And I'll send. I used to send text messages to the owner and just like, hey, what do you think of this? And he's like, it's shit. It's not literally, it's shit. It's not Apex. So I don't know. I think we were talking about this earlier. I don't know if it's a markup thing or if it's just something that they use. I'm not sure, but
listen. So just because you mentioned the markup thing, I am not against anyone making money.
For sure.
Capitalism, right? It's all about, and money makes the world go round. And money dollar, that's great. What I have a problem with is when people sell you something. If you go in and say, hey, I want to do this, and they sell you something that may work, but it's not ideal or optimal, but they have a bigger markup on it as opposed to what would be the perfect solution, that's what I have a problem with.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So when I first got open water certified, I went into a shop and I told him, hey, I was in Mexico and I heard about this cenote and I couldn't go in because I wasn't open water certified. Can I get open water certified? He said, yeah, no problem, blah, blah, blah. Knowing that caves were my end game, I still wound up with a pair of oceanic viper fins. Now, maybe he felt they were better for an open water student. I don't know.
Are those split fins?
No, they're not.
Thank God, because I'd have left the room.
They're worse than split fins. It's like having loose leaf stapled to your foot. There's no propulsion whatsoever. Even in flutter kicking, and I haven't flutter kicked in I don't even know how long. No, it's definitely been way less than that.
My last dive.
I think I was flutter kicking in bed last night.
Good workout.
Hey. So, but yeah, gear purchasing. Now that we've talked about some possibilities, gear purchasing should not just be, hey, Mr. Shop Owner, I want to go diving. What do I need? Can it be? Absolutely. But we've probably said this several times on episodes in the past. Students don't know what they don't know. They're taking their hard-earned money and putting it towards gear, and the people selling it to them should be trying to give them the best possible scenario that they could be paying for. Like Ed Sorensen, Cave Adventures, I teach through the shop. We don't try to push anything. Hey, I want to try side mount. Great. Here's the side mount harnesses we have. Why don't you demo all of them? I love that about Ed. Love that about the shop. The fact that we have the availability, and there's several of all of the harnesses that we have. We have let's see, a Scuba Force. We have the we have a Scuba Force side mount harness.
I like the blade.
We have the Dive Soft. We have the Dive Rights. We have the X Deeps. We have the Hollises. We give students and customers the potential to demo whatever they want. They settle on whatever they feel is best for them. And I am happy to configure and fit and size and train in whatever they want to use.
Okay, so why don't we talk about some of the key factors as we see them. Again, these are all our opinions weigh whenever you are making a purchase for scuba gear. And I'll go first. And that is customer service or customer support. And the reason is the most hostile place in my mind on the planet for anything.
Your house?
is, yes, my garage. And then the second would be water. Because almost nothing is, or really you could say nothing is actually waterproof. Nothing is waterproof. It's water resistant. We don't have to get into all that argument. But the point is that, the things that are made, like our computers, for example, they're housed to be water resistant or waterproof, if you want to say it that way, but they're not.
So no related to proof will fail.
Yeah, exactly. So customer service and customer support should be one of the top factors that you consider when you're trying to make a gear purchase. Agree or disagree. And if you disagree, I'd like to know why, because in my mind, I would rather buy a product that I know the manufacturer stands behind, Shearwater, and will take care of very easily in a very painless way than maybe even a product that I think is cooler or maybe has one more feature that I don't necessarily need but would like to have, but has worse customer service. Thoughts?
If I even hear a rumor that a company has somewhat even slightly questionable customer service or didn't stand behind something that I believe should have been stood behind, whether the company agreed with it or not, I'm not going to buy their stuff. I might buy the same company's other gear, maybe, like you mentioned, Shearwater. Shearwater does not locally maintain their own stuff. It goes to, I think most people send to Ditronics on the West Coast. Which, by the way, I don't know if, Richard, if you'll ever hear this, awesome job with the Terric. I sent it to you, came back, the OLED failed, and I had just gotten it back from...
do mine next.
Well, listen, so I just got it back from service, and it says right on the manual, every 6 months, peak charge it if it's just sitting. 5 months after I got it back, it had not ever gotten wet since I got it back. I went to go use it. The phone, the watch vibrated, but nothing came on the screen. So I emailed him. He says, you're going to have to send it in. He basically replaced almost everything in the watch under warranty. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I had a quick diversion, if I can, for Ditronics as well.
Okay.
I borrowed this is embarrassing for me. I borrowed a rebreather from Mecca. Mecca, thank you very much. I borrowed his Choptima, and it has the petrol controller on it. The day I demoed it at his house, turned it on, make sure everything was okay, it was fine. Got it home the day or the next day after my first dive with it. I went to go turn it back on, depth sensor had failed. And how do you make that call? And I text Mecca, I was like, hey man, thanks for letting me borrow your rebreather while you study for medical school. I broke it. I'm really sorry. And his depth sensor had failed, but it was within warranty. So I disconnected the dive can cable. I mailed it to Richard at Divetronics. I got it back a week later with a brand new board. Thing works. I mean, he gave me a new case, new straps, new screen protector. I mean, Divetronics, man, customer service. If we're talking customer service.
And I'm sure Shearwater has given him the leeway to make the call himself.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
They said, hey, if it's even questionable, they are definitely in favor of end user support. 100%. I will never, ever, ever not use Shearwater in the foreseeable future. But and just so we don't get a barrage of comments or questions, let's confirm you are chopped them up certified.
Yes, of course.
So borrowing a rebreather is one thing, and it's totally okay as long as you have a certification on
Yes,
that rebreather.
I had been, that was technically the third chopped demo unit I had dove, and I had been certified for about 18 months on a chopped demo before I had borrowed his.
So you borrowed 3 and broke 4?
I actually broke 5. But so customer service. What's the next one that we think here?
After customer service, quality, durability, usability, ease of use, comfort. There's so many things that you should think about and be concerned about. It would really be a much shorter list to put the things that you shouldn't be concerned about. Price. 100%. We both said it at the same time. Price. Listen, I am a firm believer, and I'm pretty sure you are too. Buy once, cry once. Absolutely. If you're hearing from 75 people out of the 76 people that you're diving with on a regular basis that, hey, this is a great piece of gear, but you can't afford it, borrow other people's gear or rent gear if you need to until you can afford that really, really, really reliable, durable, sturdy, well-performing, well-serviced, well-backed by the manufacturer piece of gear.
Sure.
So just to name a couple, so people understand where I'm coming from, the underwater light dude lights. Best light on the planet, in my opinion. You don't have to open the can to charge it. You just slap a cap on the bottom of the can. Works awesome. You have different battery sizes to choose from for flexibility in the budget. Different light head brightnesses to choose from. I think now he's only down to 2. He has a 20 watt and a 40 watt. But he's also got the ability to stack caps on top of caps. So you can do one battery and you can do a suit heater and a spotlight and a video light all off the one battery. Not that you'd want to, because you're going to burn through a battery. Right, but you can. You have the availability and the flexibility. But his lights are, just so I don't give any pricing, they're around a couple $1,000s.
For sure.
As opposed to, let's just say, the Orca torches, which have been really blowing up as far as popularity at what are they, like $650 for the D 630?
Yep, 630, yep.
So significantly less. I have had several people complain about the Orca torches, that there was a problem. I've heard that I called and my light head, and they just send you a whole new light head. They don't want to repair it. They just send you a whole new one. That's standing behind your product. For sure. I believe in that. I know for a fact that Bobby Franklin, the guy that owns Underwater Light Dude, he is the light dude. He stands behind everything. May not be able to fix it for free because, let's face it, especially in cave diving, it's an abusive environment. If it's clear that the equipment failed, I'm pretty sure Bobby will do the right thing and take care of you. If there's a bunch of scratch and scuffs and the light cord has slits in it and you're not taking care of it and maintaining it properly, that's between you and Bobby.
You dropped it and ran over it with your truck.
Right, you get the idea.
And then threw it across the field into the...
Actually, the battery canister will probably handle getting run over by a tank if I had to take a guess. They're pretty sturdy lights, but...
Deep dive? Bobby, send us a light. We wanna test it.
I have one, so that's fine. But maybe we can actually get Bobby to do an interview.
Bet.
Deep dives on lights and batteries and rechargers and...
If you guys want to see that, I'd be interested in hearing what's the process of maybe designing is the right word, but designing these electronics and power and water don't mix. So what's the process of that and determining how that's going to work, especially underwater?
Listen, we could schedule some deep dives for the making of an underwater light dude light. Maybe we could talk to Lamar or Jared and actually record a tour of Dive Right and do a deep dive on that. And
I think we could do that. We'll probably get in the back.
I think a lot of viewers would love to see that kind of stuff.
Underwater light dude is just like a shed in the backyard. Got a tool set. I don't know. I've never been there.
I've never been to the actual location either, but...
Bobby.
Listen, I've known a lot of people that do great things in a home office. So, yeah.
Speaking of great things, we've got some great things coming. Okay, so customer support, and we decided to shift focus to things to not worry about, and price was one of them.
Yes.
I do also want to hit on the price thing, and that is, trying to satisfy that need to own your own gear right now is inevitably going to lead you on a path where you're buying things that you're never going to make the money back on, and you're still going to end up paying more
in the long run
to get the things you want to get. I do want to say, Another thing to consider is the need for the gear. What is the purpose for the gear? So, for example, for as a primary dive computer, okay, if you're, and this is just my opinion, you may disagree with me on this, but as a primary dive computer, if you are forever for the rest of your life going to the Keys or like Blue Heron Bridge to do 12-foot dives, and you're never going to do anything technical, you don't have to drop $1,200 on a Taric or a Perdix, I should say, a Perdix with a transmitter.
If you're doing 12-foot dives, you don't have to drop anything on even a Peregrine.
Okay, so we're
12-foot dives don't even need a computer, dude.
Consider what you're doing before you make your purchases, but that goes both ways. If you think you're going to be a trimix diver, you might say, look, no chance in hell I'm going to be a trimix diver for at least 3 years. There's nothing wrong with saving to invest in a trimix capable computer now so you're ready, instead of getting a computer that will not help you in those situations. I understand backup computers. It's going to be in the comments. That's not what I'm talking about. As a primary computer, I did say that.
But let me ask you this. So, okay, I'm going to be a trimix diver 3 to 5 years from now. Do I need a computer right now? I'm going to start out with 12-foot dives. But if I have a target of 3 to 5 years from now doing trimix dives, which is sub 130, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to need to do more than a 12-foot dive for 3 years. You can't go from 12-foot diving to 130-foot plus diving overnight.
100%.
So when you're doing your 12-foot diving, hey, I'm starting to dive. I'm only doing 12 feet. I don't really need a computer, but let me start saving for that computer now.
Exactly.
And then the whole thought process, for me anyway, this is just how I would approach it. And I definitely would not have approached it this way when I was a brand new open water diver. So let me throw this out here. If anybody hears this, watches this, sees this, knows of Josh and myself, and I'm going to speak for him also because I can always tell him what to do because I'm his dad. So we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to talk to you guys, happy to give suggestions, not just on what to buy, but just the mindset of how to go about making your own decision. So I'm going to start saving for a computer because I'm doing 12-foot dives now. But in the next 6 months, I'm going to be doing 30 to 70-foot dives, 80-foot dives. That now requires a computer. So do I need to buy that $2,000 computer right now? Probably not. But I am going to say, hey, I'm at least going to buy a primary computer now that can be a good backup computer.
That's what I was saying.
When I'm doing my trimix dives. So for me, the Shearwater Peregrine is a fantastic open water diving computer. And please everybody understand, we don't get kickbacks from Shearwater. This is just us talking about our personal opinions from experience. So the Peregrine's a great computer to buy as an open water diver, and it can take you down to 130, no trouble. I think the only things that it won't do are trimix and air integration.
Correct. Yes.
Right? That's it. Other than that, it does everything else, a Perdix 2, a Petrol, everything.
I think it's limited on the decompression schedules only to emergency decompression and not planned decompression. But I mean, still, if you're doing decompression, you wouldn't or shouldn't be purchasing gear like that anyway.
Right.
And the nice thing about the Peregrine, I don't know if you know, is that you can buy the wrist mount version or it can come in the console version. This actually does sound like an ad for Shearwater now that I just said that, but that was one of the things I really liked about it because you could switch back and forth. So I would like
you
to
too can own the console.
Peregrine. We're gonna give away this Shearwater Peregrine in the comments. I know it looks like an iPhone, but trust me, it's a Peregrine.
Yeah.
We don't have one. Okay, so we talked about don't worry about price. We did talk about, hey, let's make sure that the gear that you're getting not only is suited for what you're doing now, but for what you plan to do. Again, because that really goes back into price, obviously. You just don't blow a bunch of money on a bunch of cheap stuff that works for 12-foot dives.
Right.
Knowing that, let's say next year, not even 3 to 5 years, next year you want to go get your AOW, you want to get your deep cert, you're going to go to 100, 130 feet.
Yes.
Invest in that gear now.
And
save.
And I think that when you're making a gear purchase, you should definitely go beyond a year as far as your planning. What am I going to do this time next year? All right, that's okay. But most dive gear, even for people who dive as often as I do, like I haven't replaced anything. Like nothing. I mean, my open water gear, I still have it. I use it for students if they're, other than the fins. Those fins have not been in the water since I finished and upgraded to better fins. But like literally, even the very first set of tanks, my LP95s, I just sold them like a few months ago.
I had LP95s as my first tanks too. What a coincidence.
Well, when I bought them, one was mine and one was the woman I was married to at the time, and that's fine. And then when we separated, I wound up with both tanks. I don't think she's dove since. I don't I have no idea.
Well, I'm glad you upgraded to Shelby. Love you, Shelby. Well, he loves you. I like you. You're
Are you cheating on me again, honey?
Again, whoa!
Yeah,
Dean the therapist.
So the LP95s I took from single tank back mount, separate cylinders, and I started using them as side mount. When I first started.
You were side mounted 95. Sorry, that caught me off guard. They're kind of fat.
When I first started side mounting, yes.
Okay.
I didn't know any better. You don't know what you don't know, right? So just a little bit of back history on me. They were single tank, back mount, jacket style BC open water tanks. When I started doing intro to TAC and advanced nitrox and deco procedures with Jim Vafius in New York, I learned that I needed 2 tanks. And I said, okay, rather than taking those and then having to split banded doubles, and put it back together all the time, okay, I'm going to do and have open water tanks and doubles for my technical diving. So I bought a set of HP 119s. And even though I still predominantly dive side mount, I have a set of aluminum 80s doubled up, and I have a set of my HP 119s that I still use. So the expandability and growth and usability through more than a year or two, because scuba gear will typically last a long time unless you do something really stupid to it, like run it over with a truck.
Or overpressurize it every day for 5 years.
Well, let's talk about that. Those LP95s, I sold them because, and this is just my opinion, there's no study done, there's no anything done other than I was no longer comfortable cave filling LP95s past the second hydro.
And do you still feel that way about all tanks? This is pretty curious. Again, like you said,
About
there's no
all
studies.
tanks?
Yeah, so if you were to buy a set of 80, let's just say 85s right now,
Yep.
and you cave filled it for 10 years, I assume that's what you mean, the factory hydro and then 1 hydro after that, correct?
Yep.
You would no longer feel comfortable doing that.
Once it came almost due for the second hydro, I would get the second hydro done because you're always going to have a little bit more value in a set of tanks or in tanks if they're hydroed and in hydro. And then it adds a lot of value if they just come back from hydro and you sell them within the first 6 months. Still 4 or 4.5 years on a hydro.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, so I did get the second hydro done, and I sold them to a student of mine. I told him that, hey, I'm just not comfortable with it, and he was fine with it. So
okay, so that's an interest. That kind of leads us into another thing to think about when you are buying gear, and that is, do I buy new or do I buy used? Are there any situations where you would say, for this specific type of gear, do not buy used? And I don't mean, would you say never buy a used computer, never buy a used rebreather, never buy used fins? Or would you say, hey, if it's quality, if it's in good condition, buy it. If it's used, it doesn't matter.
that's really tough because you used or recommended, or not recommend. You mentioned several different types of gear. Would I ever buy a used rebreather? Probably. Once it was sent back to the manufacturer and certified as being a good, viable unit, absolutely. If there's even a hairline crack that you can't see with your naked eye, or something is just a little bit out of round and an O-ring doesn't seal just right, once you give somebody cash, they may or may not know that they sold it to you that way.
Sure.
If they did, you're definitely not getting your money back. They are happy that they ripped you off and
have a good day.
Exactly.
Okay. So specifically what I was saying is there's no type of gear that you would say never, ever, ever buy used regardless of the condition. You see what I'm saying? Even if it went to the manufacturer, never buy it used. So, and I agree, by the way, I would say if you could find it used, it's in good condition, you can verify that it's in good condition,
yes,
and it's going to remain in good condition, by all means, buy used. I don't understand that there is a stigma with buying used gear in the recreational scuba diving community. So
why?
I don't know. I bought all of my first stuff. Was my first kit, if you will. It was up in North Carolina. It was put on layaway and it was used during his training. The guy just never came back and paid the rest of the money for the gear. So everything I bought was used. My tanks were from '95 and I got certified in 2014.
Let me ask you, what's your opinion? What do you think is the most important piece of life support gear that we're using in the water?
Regulator.
Thank you. I would have said the same thing. So I just bought. There's a group of guys that got some training done with Ed at Cape Adventurers. They bought a bunch of gear to do this thing that they were looking to do, and then they wound up not doing it. So they asked Ed if he might help resell it, and it was a bunch of SMS 75s and a bunch of sets of Dive Right XT side mount package regs, and there was other stuff too, rebreathers and all that other stuff. That's fine. The rebreather sold pretty quick. Yeah.
You kind of glaze over the fact that they bought all this stuff to do something they didn't end up doing. And I was fine until you said they just bought rebreathers and then didn't do what they were going to do with the rebreathers and decided to sell everything. That's insane. But
some people have Woody money. You know, it is what it is.
Was it Woody?
No, it was not Woody.
Okay,
it was not Woody. But they bought it and they had a very good reason to buy it, and they just wound up not. And I'm not saying that they didn't want to do the thing they were going to do. They didn't work out. Yeah, it didn't work out. Whatever it was. And you know, if I had unlimited funds and I wanted to just, and I actually know people who have bought a rebreather, trained on it, dove a little bit, didn't like it, they sold it. So what's the difference, right? So these harnesses and regs had maybe 15 dives on them. I got them at a good price. And I trust them enough that, guess what? We're going to Bonaire day after tomorrow, and my boys are each using a set of those regs.
Okay.
So
the Dive Right does make good regs, and also, just like Shearwater, has great customer service. They stand behind their products.
100%.
I've messaged them, whether it's one of the guys on Facebook or text or call. I mean, their customer service is super responsive.
I will say, you know, people say that you should have your reg serviced every year or 100 dives. It's been a little more than a year, wink, wink, and a little more than 100 dives, wink, wink. And that I have, and other than literally shooting my regs with a gun, I would still say they're bulletproof.
For sure.
Yeah, they're fantastic regs. I only dive the Dive Right XTs and the Deep 6 signatures.
And I did buy the XT side mount set, the XT1, XT4. Haven't gotten a lot of time in the water with them, but I love them so far. Just a side note, Dene isn't saying if they're Dive Right regs, you don't have to have them serviced at the manufacturer. I know. I did
precurse that with 100 dives or once a year.
Right. You need to get it done, even if they feel like they're good. You know, get your gear serviced.
I'm a little bit overdue. My problem is that since I travel back and forth to New York and Florida, I have at least 8 or 9 times said, "Hey, on the way through, I'm going to drop these off at Dive Right for service." And I just always end up so jammed in time that I just don't have time.
Plus, you've got more than one set, no doubt, being an instructor. So you know.
I'm going to put Josh on the spot. Hey, can you drop my Dive Right regs off at Dive Right to have them serviced? Would you mind?
When? Do you have them with you?
I do, actually.
Yeah, I can do that, actually.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I can do that.
See, problem solved.
Justin, send me a box.
There we go. Problem solved.
He's my son. I'm your son. It works out.
It is what it is. Oh, I got a grandkid? And I didn't even know about it?
You did. Yeah,
wow.
Sorry.
I'm not that old. Schmuck.
Well, you're stingy, so I didn't think to tell you.
Yeah. So, what else about gear that we should talk about? There's so many things. As we said, if you guys have any questions, don't know what to do, don't know where to get it, whatever. Don't know if it's the best price. I do know for a fact if you can show a published price somewhere, Ed Sorensen will beat it.
I know a guy. And I'm going to call you out on this one. It's Mecca, okay? I'm just interested in your opinion. For the first...
I don't like Mecca. You want my opinion? That's what I'm telling you.
No, you love Mecca.
That's true. I said that. Absolutely.
For the first, 8 months of having his Choptima, did not want to go even anywhere where it was possible to get the Choptima dirty. And I know he's not the only guy. I know a lot of guys that are so meticulous with their gear, they absolutely refuse to get it dirty in any way whatsoever. And a quick story, we were at Madison Blue. It was Lamar Hires was teaching Cave DPV, Cave CCR to Mecca.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no scooters at Madison Blue.
to Justin and Mecca, and I told Lamar, and he's like, "Oh, we'll get it dirty." And sure enough, they came out. And this part right here, the chopped up was brown, 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 baby.
And then Mecca came out and put it up on Marketplace and bought a new one. Hey, Lamar, can I buy a new skin, please?
He actually did that.
Did he really?
When he sold his rebreather.
Mecca, did you really buy a new skin?
No. When he sold his, and I love you, Mecca. When he sold his rebreather, he actually kept the old bag because he doesn't like the new design. So when he buys a new rebreather, he's going to send them the bag from his rebreather so they can put the guts into that instead of the new design because he doesn't like the way it looks. Okay. That's my man. He knows what he likes. But, my question is, should you be afraid to use your gear, abuse your gear? Is it unsafe to abuse your gear? You're going to say, well, it depends. You shouldn't run over your underwater light dude light.
Of course it does. If you can't drive it over the tank, then, no. Should you be afraid to use it or abuse it? The only thing I will say to that, that would be somewhat intelligent, I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say, First of all, you should be comfortable with the abuse that you're putting on your gear.
Sure.
Your mental mindset is going to be a big play here. Are you used to crawling through stuff? Because if you do, and that happens to break your gear, you still need to be able to hobble your way out, right? Also, don't go from big open massive passage where 75 divers could swim at the same time down into something that you got to do bottle off restrictions
and yeah,
the next day.
And to clarify, when I say like abuse your gear, for example, my dry suit has Kevlar woven over my other dry suit, not the one I just got, has Kevlar patches woven over it in a lot of the critical areas. And so when I'm going into, say, Jug Hole, which is a cave in Fort White, Florida, and I have the Choptima on, my profile is just tall enough that I kind of have to choose. Am I going to be on the bottom or am I going to be on the top on the way in? And I always choose the top because I'm comfortable scraping my dry suit a little bit on the ceiling as I'm going in, or at least I am more so than I would be scraping the Choptima. I just want to make sure when I say abuse the gear, I don't mean go home, throw your first stage into your garage and, punch your computer into the backyard.
I would say that I would probably agree with that philosophy. I would think that your harness would probably get a little bit more scraped than your dry suit. But if you're going to scrape and pop a hole in something, you pop a hole in your dry suit, you're going to get wet. You plop a hole in your rebreather, that can be way worse.
Sure. Yep.
So, if you realize it right away, you can bail out. If you don't realize it right away, you can get a caustic, and caustic can be rather dangerous. We talk a lot about rebreathers, so we should probably schedule sometime in the near future a deep dive on rebreathers.
Wow, as soon as I get my Sidewinder in. I'm still waiting. September sometime. Come on, Mike. Ugh.
Mike Young?
Yeah, Mike Young.
You still waiting for assembly?
Don't they make them in-house? I don't actually know, to be honest with you. I have no idea. Is that how they do it?
They're now made, from what I understand, I could be wrong because it's been a minute. Mike does do some of the assembly, and then the new owning company.
Darkwater
Group, yeah. I didn't want to mention a name, but okay.
That's okay. It's fine. They own them. It's not like it's not public news.
Right.
So
well, if we're going to say that, then basically say that it's the same guys that own X-Deep with a different company name. So
they own X-Deep and they own KISS, which is, I think we could have another discussion about that because I'm even seeing some of the K2 divers switch to X-Deep now. Woody is a good example of that. He uses an X-Deep instead of the K2. I don't know if you've seen that post on Facebook. So I'm interested with the Darkwater Group owning the X-Deep, and I know we're a little off topic here, and KISS. I wonder if there's going to be changes, obviously.
We're not off topic. We're talking about gear and what drives purchase or use of gear.
The X-Deep is going to, I think the X-Deep is definitely going to have some changes coming for the Sidewinder, just like the K2 does.
Yeah, they may have those little loops sewn in sometime in the near future. Yeah,
so
maybe.
I wonder if that will make a lot of people that dive the K2 change their mind. Because one thing that's important when it comes to gear purchasing is keeping an open mind about changes in, not trends per se, but in configuration that will better suit the type of diving you want to do. Not to say, by the way, that the K2 is not great. The KISS, I wouldn't know because I don't have one, but it obviously looks good on you. It obviously looks good on Ed. So
everything looks good on me.
Okay, I was trying to be polite, but
I'm just trying to be honest.
If something better comes out, be open-minded and willing to transition to different gear if it will better suit your needs.
I am totally okay with that, but it would take a couple of very specific things to change on the X-Deep for me to...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
For me to hang up my K2, yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see.
It's something that...
couple of months, maybe. I don't know. We have no information, by the way, so we're not saying it's going to be months or years.
Yeah, this is just Josh hypothesizing with his fancy dreams and stuff. But
hypothesizing? You always talk to me about using big words.
Do you need me to explain it to you?
Is hypothesizing really a word, or are you just saying stuff now?
I'm just making stuff up as I go.
Okay. Well, what if it really is a word? You made up a word that was already a word.
So
is that plagiarism?
Am I a reinventor then?
Like reinventing the wheel? Might be, but that's a waste of energy.
This is a wheel, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Kind of. It's just not a round wheel.
So, just to be very specific, one of my favorite features, if not the favorite feature of the Hollis Katana 2, is that I can reach up to my left collarbone and that little teardrop to dump gas is always right there.
So you just cry on your unit and it dumps gas?
Exactly. Absolutely. Because I've got heavy tears, So it's connected to a string, goes to an OPV and dump valve that's literally right between your shoulder blades, very high up. I can pull just a little bit. I can actually hear the gas come out as opposed to, looking like I'm farting underwater with the XD.
My Suba Force blade has the same thing. It's not up high, but there is a pool dump. I mean, it's up high, but it's not that high. There is a pool dump there, which I do like.
Mm-hmm.
My dive right wing, I have the I can't remember what it's called. It's
LTZ?
No, it's there. It's a back mount wing, a single tank.
Oh, okay.
It's recreational. It's a travel thing. It actually has a dump on the inside, like right here, instead of on the outside, which is what I'm kind of used to. I kind of like that, but the XD, specifically what Dene is talking about, is kind of centered right over your lower back or butt, depending on how low your harness is. And so you've got to reach around, grab your 1 inch, string and pull it up in order to dump it.
You mean your tampon string?
Yes, but of course, in order to dump, the gas or the exit for the gas needs to be at the highest point. So you kind of have to butt up just a little bit and then pull your dump so you can effectively
and then head up to dump your dry suit, and then butt up to dump your harness, and head up to dump your dry suit.
It's like being a horse or a seahorse. It's fun.
Right, the bucking bronco.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
My opinion may change. We'll see. I haven't got to dive the K2 yet, but once I do, we'll see.
Just because you mentioned the center spot of that dump, the students I was talking about earlier, 2 of them were diving the XD dual bladder. So one is directly in the center, and one is probably about 4 to 6 inches to the right. And one of them complained, "Oh, it's so hard to reach around my side mount tanks and reach that thing." So guess what I said to them? So instead of having this inflator plumbed and this one down here as a backup, switch. Inflate on this one, on what they're calling the redundant bladder, so it's 6 inches closer. And they kept saying, every time I reach back, I end up pulling the wrong one. Guess what? They're not pulling the wrong one anymore because it's closer. So they were both like, wow, I didn't even think of that. Students don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Their instructor should have told them that if they had that kind of trouble in side mount class. I don't know who their instructor was, don't care, but they were very happy with the mod. They changed it. They said it took about 15, 20 minutes to get used to it. Piece of cake.
Boom, boom. Done deal.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, I'll tell you what, Dean, we're hitting at that 47, 48-minute mark. This was going to be a shorter episode. Unfortunately, guys, I do have some meetings to do. And Dene has to get to the airport because you're headed to...
I got to go home and see my honey because it's now 2:33 already.
Yeah, you got to...
I've got a 7 o'clock flight, so I wanted to be out of here between 3 and 4. So I'll hang out and chat with Heather for a little while you get to work and
good.
Say goodbye to the family and
a little more counseling and therapy you're going to offer. Great.
Whatever.
Yeah, perfect. So anyways, thanks so much for joining us. We won't say anything too specific, but we are working on something huge, something very, very big. We're very excited. We legitimately cannot wait to get it out. But at the same time, we absolutely refuse to rush on it because it's just so damn important.
PBS.
And yes, it's peanut butter and sausage.
Peanut butter sandwich. Come on, hello.
Oh, got
peanut butter and sausage. That's gross, dude. Oh, man.
Yeah, so we're working on something pretty big. I think we're going to put some details out about possibly doing some of that Patreon stuff you guys have been talking to us about, but with a special side note associated with it. But in the meantime, take it away, Dean.
Thanks for joining us again on this episode of Into Josh's Overhead.
Josh's big head.
Thanks for joining us into the Overhead. See you guys next time or listen to us next time. Peace out, and don't forget to always dive as if.